All right, guys, welcome back to Leverage. Today we're in Woodland Hills, as usual. No, I'm just kidding. Today I wanted to talk about something that I think everybody will understand or has gone through, and it's here. I'll start it like this, right? When you're in that process of trying to put yourself in a better position, right? Like you've struggled financially before, like most people have, right? Just like me, just like most people have, right? So I've been getting a lot of like messages talking about, hey, I'm trying to put myself in a better position, but bills are killing me, right? And they ask for tips, they ask for all this stuff, and like the reality is when I see someone's the way that their finances are set up and when they struggle and so on, most of the time it's not an income problem, it's a spending problem, which is what I've come to notice, right? Even when I was struggling, right, quote unquote struggling, and I think back to how I used to operate, I still spent money on things that I shouldn't have bought, right? And I would justify it like, well, if I go out, it's $10. If I split it with two people or whatever, like I grab a hookah, or that's what I used to do, or like I would go out and be like, okay, well, it's only $20, so it's fine. And then I would come to find out at the end of the month, like, oh crap, like where did all my money go, right? And so the topic that I wanted to go over was not, it ties in with financial literacy, but it's financial discipline. And I think where most people struggle is where, yes, like in life, you're going to have bills no matter at what level you're at, there's going to be bills to pay. And I'm talking about from the starting point of when you're just starting. Those bills are going to be one, like that's where you're going to have the most stress, bills. And then you go into looking into spending habits. And what I've come to realize is like, because I have these conversations pretty frequently with people that whether want to join our team or DMs or whatever the case is, right? This person, quote unquote, who is struggling will find a way to spend $20 on a vape every week.
Mm-hmm.
Every single week they'll come to find a new vice, whether it's scratchers or whatever. I'm making things up, but it's like, have you ever heard the term, just because you get approved you can afford doesn't mean you can afford it?
Yeah, of course.
Right? That's what it comes down to. And I think for most people, when they come to see like, oh, you were approved for this, means okay, well, I can spend it. It's not the case. That's why when you see like credit card, like most people's issues with credit cards when they have no financial literacy is like, well, you were approved for X amount of money, so they go and spend it. That's what it is. And so if you're in that position, the advice that I want to give, if you're in this stage of I'm struggling to pay bills and it seems like every single time like I have built, like I make all of this money for this month and all of it goes into expense, you should really look at what you're spending. Like you have to audit yourself in terms of what you're spending, right? What you brought it up today, like let's put all this on a spreadsheet, see what we spent, right? Which like for the most, like that's what I do every morning. I check my bank accounts multiple times a day. Like I know how much money is sitting in each account. I have a spreadsheet open almost the entire duration of my time here, where I'm like, okay, well, we have money here, we have this here, and I know for a fact like this account has X amount, this account has X amount. Like I know I have a good relationship with my finance, right? Where most people, I think, oh, I know because that was me. They don't know. They think, well, I have X amount coming in. It hasn't hit, but I have X amount coming in, so I can spend this. Or I made this much this week, so I can spend that.
That's the worst.
That's what it is. And these are the messages that I've been getting. It's like, hey, it's like, I mean, you just saw you made a video for me. And it's things like that. Like, I could never fathom what that would feel like 10 years ago. I would have been like, oh, I have no clue, because paying a $500 credit card bill was like, I overspent. And then I look back where it's like, dude, why didn't I save any money? It's because I would go grab a $6 beer, $10 beer, or whatever it is. It won't hurt, right? And the discipline I'm talking about, the financial discipline I'm talking about, is having the discipline to know, well, what if you have $100 saved, don't go spending $10 of it just because you think you can afford it, right? have the discipline to save that money and put yourself in a better position. And what I've come to realize is most people make emotional mistakes, or I'm sorry, mistakes in emotion. And what I mean by that is like when you put yourself in a bad position, you make for the most part wrong decisions, right? Have you ever been frantic about like, oh my God, I have to make a decision or whatever the case? Like you've been in that position,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
And so what I've come to realize is when I set myself up and I don't spend that $6, and you guys might be laughing where it's $6. Yeah, sure. Right? When you have $100, that's 6% of your net worth. That's a lot of money. Okay. And so if you start to view it like, well, let's be disciplined in my spending. And I don't mean like I'm going to spend $6.22. Like that's not what I mean. But what I'm saying is like, if you don't need it, don't get it. Right. And you put yourself in a position to where you have enough, I'm going to use this word comfort, where you know, like if I make this mistake, it won't kill me. You set yourself up for better decision making. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so this is my advice. Like if you are in that position, learn to save money. And this is what people are going to say. Well, I can't save money because I spend it all on bills. That's not what, save what you can, right? And this is the thing, right? If you're making X amount of dollars per month and you're spending more than that per month, that's not an income problem. That's a spending problem. And then if it comes down to, well, I have debts to pay, I have loans to repay, I have this and that, and you have to audit that and see like, well, if you're spending more than you're making, there has to be a change you have to make. Right? But that's everyone's excuse, at least that I've heard. 99% of people's excuse. Well, I can't save because I'm spending everything I got. Right? So then if you just break that down, well, it's like I spent X amount on rent / mortgage. I spent X amount on utilities or X amount on this. And you come to realize, well, the person struggling is making a $800 car payment.
Okay.
Maybe switch that.
Yeah.
Right? There are things that you're going to be stuck in that position of struggle when you can't come to audit like, okay, well, I can't afford this, or I shouldn't buy this. Well, I have $100, I have $200, I have $1,000. Well, maybe I can buy this $200 wallet or whatever. People like, I'm using examples because that was me. So I'm trying to give you the example of like how I used to think. And that's why I stayed struggling for so long.
So from the sounds of it, it sounds like step one is audit your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Audit your finance. Exactly.
Okay. That's step one.
Right.
What would be step two then?
Well, step one is save.
Okay. Step
one is this almost happens like simultaneously. It's having the discipline to know. Everyone talks about discipline like, okay, well, I know what I need to do. I'm in a gym, I'm gonna eat healthy and so on. Like there's this notion of discipline that's very popular in social media right now, right? Like you gotta have discipline, this and this, which I 100% believe. But discipline is applied to all aspects of your life. Whether that's spiritual discipline or financial discipline like we're talking about, or emotionally, not too high, not too low, and just keeping that, okay, we're going to stay at this and just be collected, right? So step one would be that is number one, like no matter where you're at, I think it's safe. And I know people are going to sit, like I have this conversation a lot with other people where they say like, oh, people tell me to invest. You can't invest anything if you got nothing saved.
100%.
Right? And this is what I see a lot of people fail. I know somebody firsthand who I was investing some money, and he wanted to invest money where I was investing money. I'm going to foreshadow it or like break the news for you. It was a bad investment. I lost all my money. Okay. It was about $25,000 that I sent out. I lost it, which I know you've heard stories where I did stupid stuff. Like, you know, in hindsight, I didn't think it was stupid, but I was like, okay, let's do it.
We thought it was an investment.
Right. And so I knew if the thought process I had is like, even if I lost it, I'll be fine because I have this, like, I'm not banking on this. Right. I came to find out months later, took a loan on that. He took a loan on it and then tried to make money like that. And again, now he didn't just lose the money, he has to pay back money he didn't have, right? And so it's that type of discipline I'm talking about, where if you put yourself in a position and you saved enough money, right, you can now start taking risks where it won't affect you, where if it's not a make or break, right? And I think that the better you get with financial discipline, you put yourself in a position to where you're not affected by it. Like, you're not closing shop because that went south, or because this bill didn't get paid, or whatever the case is. Like, if you put yourself in that, again, I'm using the word comfort there, you can start making the decisions where it's like, okay, I can be a little bit more aggressive now. Because I think too many times people see, like, you hear stories of Phil Knight and how Nike started and all that. He took massive risk, right? But the reality is, like, in entrepreneurship, not everyone's going to make it. And I know that now, but anyone can if they're willing to fail it through. Most people have that one, okay, well, I'm going to give everything I got. It failed horribly. And now it's like, well, it didn't work. It's a scam, or it's this, or it's that. And they want to point fingers. Before we even get to that point, what I'm trying to say is save money, audit yourself, audit where you're spending money, right? And when you come to realize, you're going to see, well, I didn't need to spend there, but I did anyway, or I didn't need to do this or whatever. If you're going to spend money, right, give it away. Right? This is actually a conversation that I had.
Yeah.
When you think that you're struggling so much that you think you can't give it anyway, even if it's $1, because it comes back. If you're going to spend money like recklessly like that, put a budget aside for you to just give it to somebody who needs it more than you. Right? But going back, it's literally it's so simple, right? And I'm not saying that to try to make you feel bad about your position or situation, but it's audit, save your money, and just repeat. That's it. And when you have enough money saved, you can decide what you want to do with that when you're in a better position. You get what I'm saying? Because the last thing that I want is to be put in a position where I'm emotionally like attached to it, where something bad happens and now you're so mad or so upset or so whatever the case is. Like, I've been in those positions, and I know I don't like making decisions off of that state of being where I'm like, oh crap, like I have to do something, or you're upset about it and so you say something that you probably shouldn't have said. All that comes into play. When you talk about finance, like if you're in that position where it's like, okay, well, I know what it's like to be struggling financially, to where you're like, how do I make it tomorrow? And sometimes most people make bad decisions, and that leads to another bad decision. And you have to decide, okay, well, I should have saved those $6. I should have saved the $10. And then you look at over the course of a month, it's a lot of money that you wasted.
One thing I've noticed from you is you micromanage every penny. Even from like the receipts, you'll go and date back pennies and even calculate like, yo, we're missing a couple cents here. Where did those go or whatever? Yeah. And I think it's all about, if there's one thing I've noticed, it's about micromanagement. You need to think even pennies, because in the long run, pennies add up.
Yeah. And this is the thing, right? I think there's a stigma about like, no receipt, that's cool. Like no price tag. And that was me 5 years ago, where I thought I had a little success, where I was like, I don't need to look at a price tag. Like, it's fine. Now I'm like, how much is it? Cool. And so if you look at my spreadsheet, everything's down to a penny. I have everything down to the penny. Before I was like, it's a penny. Who cares? And I was taught, if you can't value a penny, you don't care about money.
Wow.
And so it hit me where I was like, crap, that's me. Right? Andy Frisella says that. It's like, you see a penny on the floor, do you pick it up? Like, no, only quarters. Right? That's typically what most people do. If you're watching this and this applies to you, like, start changing it. So what did I do? Every time I see a penny, I'm like, okay, it's my lucky day. And I'll put it away. Right? And it was that relationship that I started to build with money. This isn't I want to just preface, like, this isn't a love for money. It's a respect for it. Because I know what it's like to not have it. I know what it's like to have it. And I would choose the other, the latter every time. And I know what I can do with it. Right? That's what it comes down to. And so when you talk about most people's goals and so on with finance, it always like most people's goals are always like, I want to take care of somebody, and I want to take care of myself and just
Yeah.
give and all that.
Yeah.
You can't do that when you don't have the discipline. Like even with when we do our giveaways, right? Which you heard us talking about, like let's pull this much money and so on and so forth. That's all planned, right? Um, Very early on, I was like, okay, well, let's just give this away. But now we have a budget. We're like, we have this much money to set it aside. The shoes we gave away, we had that money to we budgeted aside. And it allows me to function the company, allows me to live my personal life and still do what I want to do, right?
I have a question. What would you tell that person that they're in that mental state where financially they're feeling it, there's this like mental state or emotional state that people get into when they realize like, damn, shit hit the fan, what do I do?
Right.
Like, what do you tell that person like to move forward? What do you tell them?
I think it's an extreme ownership perspective. Like, it's your fault. If you're going through that, it's your fault. Some way, shape, or form, it is. You got there because of a series of decisions that you've made. Okay, so first let's own up to that. Instead of, oh crap, it's so expensive. Everyone wants to talk about eggs. Like, honestly speaking, like, maybe this is because I don't buy groceries personally, but whether the grocery haul was $150 or $200, it didn't, like, as long as you, I think as soon as you start to realize, if the quicker you stop blaming other things or other stigma around you, you can have the ownership of, okay, well, how do I fix this? Right? When you're in that position and you want to blame everything else, it's never your fault at that point. Like, it's not your fault that I'm in a crappy situation financially, when in reality it is, right? You can talk about, well, my job doesn't pay me enough. Well, work hard and find a job that pays you enough. And I understand me saying this might be a punch in the gut, where if you're going through it, again, I know what it's like, right? But too many times I hear, well, the economy sucks, or this sucks, or that sucks. And to the person going through that, again, this is why I say I put myself in a position of that word comfort, because I don't want to be put in a position where I have to decide, like, what do I have to do to make ends meet, right? And it starts with the pennies, the dollars. Save that. Save the little things that you're thinking it's okay to spend on because you have $100 in your bank account. Or, I'm using numbers that I think if you look at the statistic, most people don't have a lot of money saved. And again, to me, that's scary, right?
I think the average adult right now has $2,000 saved.
Right. And so if you think about the cost of rent, right? Let's just say you don't have a car payment. Just rent alone is going to eat away half of that if you're splitting a room with somebody. And then what? So now you just put yourself in a position to where it's like, well, I have to try to find another source, or I have to scavenge for more money to make ends meet next month. If you start saving the $6, the $5, the $20, and you put yourself in a position where it's like, okay, well, now I can make more calculated risk, or be a little bit more aggressive in what you're trying to pursue. It sets you up to be in a better position later down the road, right? My mom used to tell me this story. It was some fairy tale, as a kid, right? I think it's like a fable, right? Where it's about, if I remember correctly, it's like a grasshopper and an ant, little ants, right? And my mom was saying, during summer, the ant was working, collecting food, hiding, putting it away, collecting food, hiding it, putting it away. And this grasshopper would find what it needed to do, take care of that day, and play the fiddle all day. And then winter came, and now the grasshopper's freezing, has no food, and the ants are with their little family, happy inside, warm. And she was like, this is why you save. And she told me that, again, I didn't know I couldn't connect the two as a little kid, but that's the moral of the story, right? If you think life's good right now, right, you're going to come to realize if you are on this path of self-betterment, You're going to have days where it's crap. You're going to have months where it's crap. And so the better you set yourself up for those times to come, because those times are inevitable, even if you have seen success. You set yourself up. So that's the same reason why it's like the first big check you get, you don't go buy a watch. You save it. The first big whatever it is, put it away. That quote, save it for a rainy day, that's there for a reason. This isn't to say like the whole point of life is to collect money. But where I see most people struggling right now, at least from like my interaction, is, well, bills suck. I have this to pay, that to pay. So again, save your money, audit where you're spending. That is the biggest key, because I feel like most people don't even remember what they spent money on or how much money they spent on last week. Right? Like, for instance, right? You had dinner over this weekend, right? Do you know how much you paid? You don't have to tell me the amount, but you have a track of what you're paying?
The exact number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most people will go, okay, well, that's fine. And credit cards and like Apple Pay and all that has made it so easy where it doesn't affect you, because you're not seeing money in your wallet disappearing.
Yeah.
Right? But that's what it comes down to, where it's like, well, if you spend all that, now you have to, like, if you don't know that, it's where you start to lose track. And most people have lived their entire lives not doing that. So now it's easy to point a finger and be like, well, everything's just so expensive. Well, you didn't need 3 beers.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I think that is my biggest tip when you're starting, is to have or build a good relationship with your finance. And that means tracking where you're spending, not spending where you shouldn't be spending, because the reality is it's not it's not an income problem. It's a spending problem. That's what it is. And so keep that up. Wait a whole year and see if your life is in any better position. And I would argue it probably is.
Those spreadsheets are important. Tracking is important.
Yeah, well, I used to do it on a pen and paper.
Yeah,
like
even
I did
that.
pen and paper, right?
Even
so
that.
I was that guy. Well, now you're in a world where you have your phones and you can literally just type up what you spent, right? I have a friend who golfs so much, he tracks as a monthly expense how much he spends on golf.
Wow.
Like, he showed me a spreadsheet of date, course, dollar amount.
Oh, wow. He takes into consideration the balls and the tees and
yeah,
all
just
that?
I think, well, I didn't break it down like that, but he showed me all his tee times. It's like that, right? Well, mind you, he's in a position too, right? He's in a good position too, but he's still tracking the $60 spent, the $70 spent. He's tracking it all, so why can't you? Right? That's what it is. So I want to leave it to you like that, so you guys understand. Like, I want to take this like a step at a time, because we've done longer ones where I want people to at least get the message. And today's message is literally know where you're spending money. The better you get at it, I promise you'll be in a better financial position, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, a year from now. And that's what it is.
We got to track our money. We got to be accountable for our own actions and be aggressive, because we put ourselves in that hole. It's up to us to get ourselves out of that
be
hole.
aggressive in your saving too.
Yeah.
You can be aggressive in your saving. And I think that's it, dude. Like, start there, and then we can start taking on more lessons on like, this is how to grow from that. But that's the foundation of how I would live, or how the first decision that I made was, okay, well, let's see where I spend money. All right. So thanks, guys.
Thank you guys for tuning in. That was a brief, quick message from Alex Lee about financial discipline.
Yep.
It's not always easy. So let's
It's not. Yeah, it's not.
We got to do the hard things at times.
Hell yeah.
All right, bro. Thank you.
Yes, sir.